Oh, right. You're right.
It's all taking consent, Danny.
Sorry?
Okay.
For everybody, it's showing up whether you okay to use your video.
Yeah.
Okay. I can do the I can guide them. Okay. Mọi người ơi,
Okay.
mọi người có thể chỉ cần bật cái camera hoặc đó là bật camera thôi là coi như là mọi người đã agree rồi đó. Thì mọi người bật camera nó sẽ hiện lên một cái màn hình đó là mọi người có agree để cho record hay không. Thì giống như dạng mọi người click vô OK cái là được. I'm speaking Vietnamese. Don't worry.
No, good.
Yeah.
That's new. I've never seen that before.
Trang ơi, OK. Bác sĩ Thư ơi. Chỉ cần bật camera cái thôi cũng được. Xong sẽ OK.
Okay, we got everyone back?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Alrighty, so what we'll do, we'll start off with just an overview of the study to begin. So a lot of this it's a summary of what's in the protocol. So I will just share my screen with you. Okay. Just bear with me for 1 sec. Okay, that's better. Alrighty then, so thanks for all being here this evening, and we'll just go jump into it. So this is the spectacle films utilising arrest technology for slowing down myopia progression in Vietnamese children, and this is a prospective control randomised clinical trial sponsored by Enthalmic in Sydney. So this is our study team. Praveen is part of this study team for the most part, but I didn't get his picture on here. Apologies, Praveen. So generally, if you have any questions, these are the people that you would speak to. So let's have a look at, first of all, the ARREST concept. And ARREST is an acronym, and it stands for Active Reconfiguration and Retinal Coding of Spatiotemporal Signal. So the background is that in the literature, we've seen some reports that a continuous visual input over time results in a static retinal ganglion cell firing pattern, which is close to the retina's basal state. And this is what happens in a single vision lenses. And if we introduce spatiotemporal variations in the visual stimuli, we generate a dynamic firing patterns that deviate from this baseline. And we've done this in contact lenses, and we're also looking at doing this in a spectacle film. And that's what we call the ARREST film. And the ARREST film is a spectacle film containing opaque, non-refractive features which are printed onto a spectacle film, and the film is then applied to a spectacle lens. And Praveen will go into it a bit later as to how that is actually done, or how the spectacles are dispensed. And our hypothesis is that if we can modulation of retinal ganglion cell activity away from the baseline state, which is what we refer to as an active reconfiguration retinal coding of the spatiotemporal signal, we hypothesize that it's hypothesized to maintain the eye in an active state and reduce the stimulus for actual elongation. The upshot is, in theory, we can reduce the rate of myopia progression by introducing something like the ARREST film. So our aim is to compare the rate of myopia progression over 12 months while wearing spectacle films utilising ARREST technology. And what that is the ARREST film applied to a single vision spectacle lens, and we're comparing this against a single vision spectacle lens. And the primary objective for this study is to demonstrate superiority in reducing the rate of myopia progression. And we're measuring that by change in actual length from the dispensing visit or when treatment is introduced between the test and control. As a secondary objective, we're looking at comparing the change in the cycloplegic spherical equivalent autorefraction from the baseline between test and control. So there will be a bit of disparity between the treatments of when the treatment is introduced in terms of the cycloplegic autorefraction. We're also looking at comparing visual performance between test and control, and we're looking at subjective data in the form of questionnaires and also standard high contrast visual acuity measured in the normal way between the test and control. So our key inclusion criteria is ages between the ages of age between 6 to 14 years old, preferably younger the better, and willing to wear spectacles for a minimum of 5 days a week, 6 hours a day. We anticipate, based on our previous experience, that the wearing times should be a little bit longer than that because they're spectacles and generally children are myopic, so they need the spectacles to see clearly. So hopefully that won't be a problem in a spectacle lens study. And we also require a minimum visual acuity of 0.1 logmar, 20/25, 676 or 0.8 decimal, whichever you like. It's all the same thing. And we do have some refraction requirements at baseline, and that is a spherical equivalent between -5 diopters to -050, an astigmatic component, but no more than a 150 diopters of cylinder, and a spherical equivalent, an isometropia of less than or equal to a diopter. Pardon me. Now that is the inclusion criteria for entering the study. We do anticipate that children will be become more myopic, and if they're on the border of the refraction requirements at baseline, there's a fair chance they're going to be beyond that by the time the study or as the study progresses into over a year. So the actual powers that you can get in the spectacle lenses is a lot more than that, but this is just what is required to be part of the study. So this is the requirement at baseline. Now, part of the key inclusion criteria is the main one is current or prior use of interventions intended for myopic control. So these include optical devices such as bifocals and multifocals, spectacles and contact lenses, and also orthokeratology. So what we don't want to do is confound the study with previous treatments, which can always be claimed to actually, there is an effect. We don't want that to be confounded by what they've been previously using. Pharmacological agents, particularly atropine, are also excluded from the study unless they're, and that's atropine at least with a concentration of greater than 0.01%. Participants who have previously used 0.01% atropine are eligible, provided they don't use 0.01% atropine for at least 30 days before the baseline and enrolling into the study, and at any time during the study. And pyrinzapine is also excluded, although, to be honest, I don't know too many people who are using that. And other things too, such as ocular systemic neurodevelopmental conditions that could influence refractive development, and of course, keratoconus.
Danny.
So here are the outline of the visits. So at the baseline, the participant, that's actually around the wrong way. You should be getting explain the study, written informed consent obtained, and then you determine whether they're eligible for the study.
Daniel.
Danny.
Yes.
Hui wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, I just I'm not listening to myself because I keep getting an echo. Fire away, Hui.
Okay. Very quick question. Do we apply the time frame like the same thing for atropine to the other optical strategies? Let's say that they have been used bifocal spectacles for a while, but now they already stopped that for at least 3 months, 12 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks.
I suppose it
Are they
really
still eligible for us?
I would say the way I'd interpret it is if for something that is actually okay, let's go back a step. Bifocals and multifocals, bit like 0.01% atropine, don't really show too much of an efficacy in terms of actual length changes. So I'd treat them all the same. Things like orthokeratology and say something like MiSight contact lenses, which I don't know if it's a big thing in Vietnam, but things like orthokeratology and MiSight do have proven efficacy. And I suppose it becomes a judgment call. So if they've been on it, for a significant period of time, I would say that would exclude them. So in other words, we got a washout period for treatments that may not actually do much. Vision therapy could also fall under the same sort of category. But for those treatments that have shown proven efficacy, I'd be a little bit more circumspect, and I would be inclined if they would be ineligible if they wore that particular correction for a period of time. Now, what do you call a period of time? I'm thinking if they were wearing them for more than, say, 6 months, they're probably not going to, I would say they're not eligible for the study. But if they tried it and only wore it for a month or so or something along those lines and haven't worn it for a while, I'd say that any effects would be minimal, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. Does that answer your question, Hui?
Yeah, I just wonder if they already used that in the past for at least maybe 6 to 12 months, but now they already stopped using that optical strategy for at least 8 to 12 weeks. It means that over the most recent 8 to 12 weeks, they have not been used that strategies anymore.
I do understand what you're saying, but I'm pretty sure that my definitions there are also already a stretch on what is actually in the protocol. The protocol doesn't actually, the protocol itself only defines the use of atropine. So I'm exercising a little bit of clinical judgment in applying the same sort of judgment. It's more to do with things that are effective. So you could argue that bifocals aren't particularly effective. Progressive edition lenses aren't particularly effective. Atropine greater than 0.01% probably is, so that's excluded. Orthokeratology that's excluded. Something like a DIMS or a Stellest or even a dot lens, that would be considered, published data to show that it's effective. So once you start getting prior use of treatments that are effective, I think that's when you've got to draw the line. So what you also need to do, I suppose, as a PI in your case, and also clinical judgment, is whether they've actually, whether they've worn them long enough to actually have an effect. The answer is that you're probably right. In any treatment, you could probably say that it's not going to have an effect, but no one's actually done a study to do so. And when you start introducing these sorts of confounders, you could end up being in trouble, especially if you find that your product is efficacious in reducing the rate of myopic progression. You can always say, well, it's only effective because you allowed so many people that have actually used a previously effective product. So you've got to be careful. And I do understand the need to recruit by relaxing the inclusion criteria under those circumstances. But by the same token, you don't want to relax the inclusion criteria, the eligibility criteria, at the risk of actually confounding your study to the point that any inferences made are questioned. Okay. So once we get past the baseline and participants are willing and eligible to be in the study, they're randomized into one of two interventions, and that's either a control single vision lens or a test lens. Spectacles are then ordered and dispensed at the next visit, which is the dispensing visit. And then we have visits at 1, 3, 6, 9, and 12 months from the dispensing visit. And once we get to that point, that is the end of the study. So this is the visit schedule. So there's no window period for the baseline visit. We would like the dispensing visit to occur somewhere between 2 weeks and 40 days. So that's 14 plus 26, which is 40 from the baseline visit. So hopefully if the spectacle processes are in place, or as we discussed actually earlier in the week, we might actually be able to do this a little bit sooner than that. And we are probably going to amend the protocol because we had to amend something else to actually allow for a time period less than 2 weeks. And from there, with the 1 month and the other visits, it's pretty much taken from 30 days being 1 month. So that's where the target dates are from the dispensing visit. And we do have a window period of up to 30 days up to the 12-week visit, at the 12-month visit, sorry. And slightly less for most of the other visits. Now, the study itself is not masked because the spectacle films have identifiable edge patterns. Once you see the film, you'll know that a person's wearing a test. So impossible to mark, so we won't be even attempting to mask this study. Shouldn't be a major problem. It might lead into some question as to the subjective data, but since the primary objective is actual length, the operator knowing what the person's wearing or even what the person's wearing shouldn't have an effect on that being an objective measure. And the same can apply to cycloplegic autorefraction. Okay, so we are going to be using an electronic database for this study, and this is the CASTA database. It is designed to be used as direct data entry, and all you need is an internet connection to be able to enter data directly into CASTA. And under those circumstances, data entered into the into CASTA is considered both source and the case record form. So that's for the purposes of the study. Obviously, with something like an actual length measurement, the source data will always be the database under which it was first stored, but we're not going to have access to that in this study, obviously. So that's why the information inputted into CASTA is considered source. And we would like, with the direct data entry to be, for entries to be completed at the time of visit, there is a feature, or there is a need to sign off forms electronically, and we'd like that to be done within 24 hours of the visit. You can use a paper CRF. I don't recommend it, but a paper CRF is to be used if direct data entry is not available. And what happens here is that data is entered onto paper and then transferred to CASTA. And under those circumstances, the paper CRF is considered the source data for most of the variables. And what constitutes, or this is just for the previous training that we had when Vietstar made a good point regarding what is source data. The final decision regarding what constitutes source data is to be made following discussion between us and the CRO, which is Vietstar. But generally speaking, for the purpose of the study, what you write down is the source data, and what's entered into CASTA is the source data, although it may not be source data for what is actually, it may not be source data as far as the hospital is concerned, I suppose is the easiest way to put it. So we will be performing subjective refraction. So this is pretty much, there's not much else to it, but we don't need any specific equipment to perform subjective refraction. Feel free to use a phoropter, a trial frame, trial lens, whatever you like. Visual acuity will be measured. Again, specific equipment is not essential, but electronic charts are generally preferred if available. Actual length biometers, they need to be a partial coherence laser interferometer, and I'm sure that Hanoi has got something along these lines. Our preference is for Lenstar or IOL Master. I can't remember off the top of my head what Hanoi has. Does Hanoi have a Lenstar or an IOL Master, or is it something else?
Yeah, we have the
Okay, good.
IIL master.
Fantastic. Okay, good. Perfect. Biomicroscopy is not an essential part of the study, but there is a need to look at eye health. So again, specific equipment isn't needed. The original protocol did have anesthetic to be used as a routine, but from our last or from the study that's being run in Ho Chi Minh City, I don't think that that's as often used in Vietnam. So you normally just put the cyclogel in straight away, which is fine. But there is provision in the protocol to use an anesthetic, typically binoxonate or proparacaine, prior to the installation of the cyclopentolate. The other made or the secondary primary outcome measure is the cycloplegic spherical equivalent autorefraction. We do prefer open field autorefraction, but it's not essential if you don't have one. Then you can use the standard autorefractor to perform that measurement. The only thing is that we would ask, along with the use of the with the biometer, that you try to stick to the same instrument for the duration of the trial as much as possible, obviously not taking into account things that are out beyond our control. But what we don't want is for some patients to have open field autorefraction and for other patients to have a closed field autorefraction. Subjective data is being collected via questionnaires, and that is entered directly into the database from CASTA. Into CASTA from the database or on the paper CRF if paper CRF is being used. So that's pretty much it for the outline of the study. More details are available in the protocol, which I'm hoping everyone has got access to. So that goes into a lot more detail about the study and also specific procedures to be performed at each of the visits. And all the procedures that you need to perform at each of the visits are also available on the CASTA database. So I'll stop sharing at this point, and I'll welcome any questions if, at this stage. Okay, I'll take silence to mean that no one has any questions. So now I'll might just go into the CASTA training, Praveen, and then you can do your spectacle training after that. Is that okay?
Yes, yep, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. So CASTA, a big component of this study is obviously collecting data. So there is a bit of training that we do for entering the data into the CASTA database. It isn't particularly complicated, and I'm pretty sure if you've used databases in the past, you'll get the hang of CASTA quite quickly. It's like any other database. Field, enter information, do certain things, sign off, go on to the next one. So we'll quickly I'll run through the beginnings of CASTA training, and I'll just have a few words to say at the end of it about other resources available for using CASTA. So what we're going to do as a beginning is how to register a participant in CASTA, how to update the status in CASTA, performing a randomization, and that is done by each site, recording actual length measurements and then uploading the output, recording cycloplegic autorefraction measurements and uploading the output and signing off in CASTA. Actually, I didn't update this. So there is quite a detailed instruction manual available to use on how to use CASTA. So when I actually did this presentation, I hadn't finished writing it, but I finished it now, so it's available now. So what I'll do over the next day or two is I'll email a copy of the of that document to everyone who's attended this training. So let's have a look at registering a participant. So that's the first step. And each participant should be or must be registered in CASTA as soon as they attend the baseline visit. Our suggestion is that you do that registration at reception when the participant arrives. And it's important to register someone in CASTA because after registration, we generate a unique participant ID. So every participant in this trial has their own unique number. This allows identification of every participant, and it's also required to enter data, to do instrument uploads, to perform randomization. So pretty much anything that you want to do in CASTA needs to be done following registration. And Kathy, who is online here, is the person who gives access to CASTA, and that your username is your email. So what I would like everyone who needs access to CASTA is to email Kathy on the email displayed here, and we also have an email address for administrative things, and that's called kangarootrials@enthalmic.com. So email Kathy, CC Kangaroo Trials for access to CASTA, and we do have a dummy database available where which we'll get into in a very shortly. So the dummy database is also called the test database, and that is actually ready now. So if you email Kathy, you can have access to the test database. You can put participants in. You can just get a hang of get an idea and a feel for how to use CASTA. And whatever you put in the test database doesn't matter because none of the data that you put in there is kept. When we make the database go live, when we commence the study, that data is kept, so you don't use the live database for practice. That's what the dummy or test database is for. So this is just what you need to register a participant. So it's a relatively simple process once you have access, of course. So you go to CASTA, and that the server, and it's accessible via that particular web page. So what you do once you get to the login screen is you choose Australia, log in using the email and your email and password. So once you get access to CASTA, and this will be the same in either the test or the dummy, I think, Kathy can correct me on that if that's not true, but it usually ends up being the same. Whether you do have to do something, I'm not sure, but your login is your email, and you create your own password, and Kathy sets things up to enable that to happen. So once you've got your login and your password, you click your login, click onto the study called the Arrest Spectacle Film Study, and you should only, unless you've got access to CASTA for other studies, that should be the only study that you can see on your screen. So you click onto the Arrest Spectacle Film Study, and that'll bring you down to a list of all participants. And if we want to register a participant on the study, we hit New, which is the button on the right-hand side of the screen. That will set up a pop-up. So this is what the dummy database looks like. The database, when it's live, will actually have the site as, I'm not exactly sure, but it'll be something to do with Hanoi. The participant ID will be next on the list. And the way CASTA works, these first two numbers are given to each site. How it decides what those two numbers are, we have no idea. As far as we can tell, when we create a study, we're always number 11. But different sites will always have two different other numbers. And the next 4 digits is the participant ID. And if this is the first patient, the first two digits is Hanoi, and then number 1 means it's the first participant in the study. You hit create, and then will get to this screen, and this will show a screen that shows all potential visits for this study. So all visits are shown here, baseline dispensing, and all visits up until the final visit. So what you do to register is you click onto the visit that you're at, which will be baseline. And once you click onto it, you'll see all the various forms that are needed to be completed for, in this case, baseline, but this will be the case for all other visits, all other visits as well. So click on baseline details, which will give you a screen, not in a crossways like I've shown here. It's actually from top to bottom, but there's basic information that you require. Nothing should be new or interesting here. It's just information that we need without actually de-identifying for the participant. And to register the patient, you need a minimum of the date of the visit, the participant initials, and their date of birth. Everything else is not required for registration, still required, but not required for the purpose of registration. And typically the investigator will collect all these other data. So that's to do with obtaining informed consent, who took it, when it was signed, the various demographic characteristics of the participant, including their sex, ethnicity, previous use of atropine, history, plus a few other things that are to do with demographic data. So once you've registered a participant in CASTR, they have what we call a status. So to look at the status, and this is just a ready check, and it's very useful for us to know who's actually still active in the study and who is not. So what you do is you get into CASTR, you click on the required participant, and the participant status is shown on the left-hand side of the screen. And what we're interested in for the status is this little thing, which at the moment is, it says not set. So not set is the default position. So when you register a participant, CASTR assumes that their status is not set. And if you click on the current status, you get a pull-down menu of the various options, and there are three. A participant who is currently enrolled equals enrolled. A participant who discontinues before completing the study is called discontinued. And a participant who attends or who has completed the study, i.e. attended the 12-month visit, has a status of completed. So that's the basic overview, pretty basic and straightforward, but don't worry if things appear to be rushed in this visit. I don't want to waste too much time on unnecessary details for CASTR, because there is that document that we have, and we will be going through live demonstrations as part of study training as well. Another important aspect is the randomization, and the site is responsible for randomization. So we'll check randomization, but we don't actually perform it. It's done by the site. And this is done if a participant has performed or has completed the baseline visit, and that participant is deemed eligible and willing to be in the study. If they are not eligible, or if they don't want to be in the study, even though they've signed, you've done the baseline details, if they say, I don't want to be in the study, they are discontinued and randomization is not performed. We only want to randomize people once the agreement to be and continue in the study is made. They can certainly discontinue at that point or any point after that, but we don't want to be randomizing people who have, say, failed the eligibility requirements of the study. So harping back to registration, yes, they must be registered and enrolled into the CASTR database. So you click on the participant to be randomized, and what you'll see, so in this particular case, getting back to status, we've gone through and updated the status and enrolled, so that now shows up as green. But if this screen just below that says not randomized, then they need to be randomized. So what you do is you click onto that screen, a pop-up box appears saying the participant can now be randomized. You hit randomize, and there's this warning, which don't worry too much about. It'll come up every time you randomize, and it's true. You need to be sure that you're going to be randomizing, because we cannot undo this. Once you actually randomize a participant in this study, we cannot change that. So whatever letter they've been given is taken up in the randomization, which is why we don't want to randomize those who aren't going to be in the study. But if they're going to be in the study, you just click on randomise at this point, and what they will then do is give you the randomisation details. Now, even though it's an unmasked study, it will still have an allocation of either A or B. So in a masked study, you won't know what A or B is, but in this unmasked study, you will. But yeah, I'm not sure we can change it, but I think for the purposes of just making sure databases are, making sure that databases are at least masked from those doing the monitoring, we're going to keep numbers rather than actually putting in their test or control. And now what happens is once you've randomized the participant, when you go back to this screen, instead of saying not randomized, you'll see what allocation or what group the participant's been randomized into. So there's quite a bit of data that we do collect, and the primary outcome measure is actual length. And what we need to do is two things. We need to record the data, but we also need to upload something which will act as source data. And this is vitally important because a big part of our job at Enthalmic is actually checking to make sure that data's been entered correctly, there's no typographical errors, and actually the right input, the right actual length measurements have been uploaded to the correct participant. So that is actually a big part of our job, but if we don't do that, then we could run the risk of pretty much ruining the study if we're not sure, if we don't take measures to make sure that data's been entered correctly. So the basic procedure with actual length, not anything different, I would imagine, for what everyone is used to doing, but you take 5 valid measurements of actual length per eye, and you enter, well, it's actually not all 5 results, it will actually be 10 results into Castor. 5 measurements per eye, that's 2 eyes, that's 10 measurements. So this is what it looks like. So you just enter the data into Castor. Actually, I'm going to do something which I should have done before. Just bear with me, because we've since discovered that trying to get 0.04 measurement, a maximum range of 0.04 millimeters in a study is impossible in children. So what we would like to is encourage everyone to take measurements, and these measurements, provided you don't have issues with eye movements, everything else should be pretty repeatable, especially when the participant's sitting in the chair and you're taking consecutive measurements. And we like people to aim for about 0.04 millimeter range in each eye. But we would ask you that if you get measurements that are outside a 0.07 range, to actually repeat those measurements so that we aim for 0.04. We're happy with a maximum 0.07, but we like to avoid ranges greater than 0.08 and above. And because I would imagine that it's part of your hospital procedures, but make sure that the results are also saved to the biometers database. This could be very useful if we find weird measurements, typically caused because something's been entered or uploaded into Castor incorrectly. But if they're saved to the biometers database, then we can always go back or get sites to go back and check to make sure that the correct actual length measurements have been used. So the next step is to upload the results to Castor. So the actual measurements are put into Castor, and that is what we look and use for the purpose of analysis. And the next step is just making sure that the numbers that have been added to Castor can be verified at some point independently, and queries can be raised if there's something strange happening. Just a couple of points. The uploaded data is considered source data. So that's what we go through next in uploading the images to Castor. Obviously, the source data in this case is going to be the saved biometer measurements, but for the purpose of the study, what you upload is source data, and this enables us to easily check the record. So how do we upload data to Castor? There are a number of options, and most sites will actually use this option 1, which is a tablet or a smartphone. So what you need is an internet connection, and that can either be Wi-Fi or mobile, makes no difference. And what you use is the camera function on the tablet or the smartphone to directly upload the output to Caster. So you end up taking a photo, and the photo can be a number of things. It could be a printed hard copy from the IOL master, or it could also be the results displayed on the instrument's monitor. So what you do, it's exactly the same as accessing Caster through your computer. You go onto your tablet or smartphone and you use the browser to access Caster, same website. Go to the participant, go to the required visit. So this is done at baseline, so let's use that as an example. And you go to the form in the baseline visit called actual length. And when you're ready to upload, there's a section in Caster called upload right eye, upload left eye, and it's choose file with an image of an arrow going up to a cloud. So you choose that file, and on a tablet or a smartphone, and this is actually taken from my my Samsung phone, you'll have an option of either collecting information from the camera, a camcorder, or files, or something similar. Choose the camera option. You take a photo of the printout or the monitor, and then it automatically uploads to Caster. And when you're done, you'll have something along these lines. So this will show that you've actually uploaded the image to Caster. It can be an image, a PNG file in this case. It could be a JPEG. You can also update PDF files, as I'll show shortly. And once that's done, we can then using the button here, the uploaded file on the screen, so then we can easily check to make sure that the actual length measurements have been correctly entered. Depending on the instrument, you may need to do each eye separately if you can't get both eyes simultaneously visible on the printout or the monitor. So that's okay. It's just done twice. If you can actually get the image onto the results for both eyes on an upload in one image or one document, you only just upload it to the right eye by default. You don't have to upload it to the left eye. So this is an example of an IOL master, and this is a photo taken of the hard copy. So we've gotten the 5 measurements in each eye, and they've been entered into the Caster database as shown here. And then that image also gets uploaded so that we can verify it at a later date. This is an example of results from a LensStar, and this is taken from the monitor. So this is typically what you get. You've got the 5 measurements here. They've already been entered into Caster, and then we just simply upload this so we can verify it. We can also upload files from a computer. The computer must be connected to the internet, and the file containing actual length results is saved on a computer and uploaded to Caster. So this can be done by printing results directly from the biometer as a PDF, printing the results of a hard copy and then scanning it as a PDF, taking a shot using a snipping tool of the results displayed on the biometer's monitor, and using that, that image to upload at a later date. So what you do is you save the file to a known location, and again, same process exactly. Use your browser to go to Caster, choose the participant, choose the visit, choose actual length, choose file. And then what will happen on a computer is it'll set up or open up a browser or an Explorer bar, sorry. And then you just go navigate to the known location, click on the required file. So in this case, it's patient number 3, actual length of the right eye at baseline. Hit open, and when you've done that for both eyes, it'll show it'll show up exactly like that on the Caster database. Again, you may need to do each eye. Cyclopedic autorefractions are the only other measurements that are uploaded to Castor for exactly the same reasons. Actual length is primary. Cyclopedic autorefraction is secondary. In terms of how you set up your autorefractor, we don't want to change anything here. So what we suggest to minimize things, and again, what we don't want is things to be changed for different participants, or even worse, the same participant at different visits. So what we suggest you do is you use your site's default settings, and that could be a vertex distance of 0 in increments of 0.01. It could be a vertex distance of 12 in increments of 0.25. Whatever you use under normal circumstances, that's what you use when measuring the autorefraction. So the investigator takes 5 valid autorefraction measurements, and please advise me if this doesn't work for your particular autorefractor. But most autorefractors, once you take the 5 measurements, will give you an average result. How it works out that average result, I've got absolutely no idea. The numbers seem to stack up, but I have tried to look at different ways to get that same result, and I can't find it, but no matter. Working on the theory that the individual increment will be consistent in implying how it actually calculates the average, that is what we use. So in this particular case, we're going to upload the results in the form of a sphere, sill, and axis of those measurements highlighted there, which is the average of the previous 5. So in the relevant section in Castor, you add the numbers in the form of sphere, cylinder, and axis, and then you just go through exactly the same procedures as actual length. However you do it, you can get a printout similar to what we have here and just take a picture of that. That works quite well. I would encourage you to do things like put the participant number and the visit that it was done. If you're doing that, we can scan as a PDF. So you scan the printout as a PDF and follow the same steps as actual length. So I don't think we need to go through it again, but it's exactly the same. The only difference is that instead of using the actual length form, you use the cyclopedic autorefraction, and again we have the the choose file icon. Okay, so we'll move on to signing off in Castor. So similar to if you're doing things on a paper CRF, or if you're writing on a form, you typically need to sign the form to say that you're taking responsibility, that yes, I have checked it, I'm happy with this. You sign off on it. We do exactly the same thing in Castor, but we do it electronically. And when we're using Castor, and what you'll see when you do use Castor, we've got various little things that show up on the computer. And a form is complete once all required data has been entered into Castor. So what you do is to sign off, you click on the 3 little buttons on the right-hand side. There are a number of options. You click sign this form. There's a confirmation, and the sign off is simply the same email you use to actually access Castor. The same password. Click sign. And when you're done, the form will show that it's been signed by this little symbol representing a pen and a signature. So what we don't want to do is sign forms that haven't been completed. So try to complete all the forms before you sign off on Castor. Otherwise, you need to then unsign it or show up as an audit trail and all sorts of things. So try to sign off once everything's complete. Now, Castor does allow your email and password to be saved on your browser so that you don't need to manually enter it each time, which is nice, but I suggest you only do that if you're using a computer which has your own login or your own computer that no one else uses. Otherwise, what will happen if you've got your password and user email in there, anyone can sign off on Castor, and if there are issues, the one we check the way we check the investigator is we try to find the one that actually signed off. So if you didn't do it, you might get a whole bunch of queries that you've got nothing to do with. So we've got the, with the forms, we do have other options. So when you start to enter data into Castor, we have this thing called in progress. So that's when you've entered form, but not all forms have been completed. You can sign off in Castor by using exactly the same procedure. So even though it says in progress, you can still sign off, but we don't want you to do this. We want you to complete all the values and then sign off on it. So there will be a lot more training in Castor, and it will become, this is just a simple overview just to get you into the swing of things. Once you have access to Castor by emailing Kathy, you'll be able to practice these things as well. And one of the training sessions, we will actually go through a live demonstration of how to do those things that I just showed you in Castor. As I said, it's not particularly difficult, and I'll email you the instruction manual, which can serve as rather than something that you read from cover to cover. It will allow you, it's set out in such a way that it will show you exactly how to do specific things in Castor when you need to do them. So that's it for the Castor database. So I welcome any questions that you might have.
I think that we in our team we just have one question. That's so how many account on Castor are we allowed to create for our
As
team?
many as you need. That's another thing I forgot to mention. Different users have different rights on Castor. So an investigator will have, and this may not be as important in this particular study, but an investigator will have certain rights, but if someone's doing administrative work, they may not be able to, or they won't be able to actually change information in Castor. So we can have as many users as needed for that particular site, and also different access rights depending on what your role is in the study. Okay, so
I do have a question.
You have a question.
So when people send me their emails, can they tell me what their role is in the study so I can give them the correct access as well? That'll be very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Then
Thank you.
our team will send to you for the confirmation after having approval by Dr. Chi and myself.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. So over to you, Praveen.
Okay, thanks, Danny. Yeah, I'll quickly share the screen. So I think while Danny explained the yeah, so I think that was it was a good introduction about the study overview and also the Castor. So I'm not going to take too much time given that we're already running over 1 hour period. So the second part is mostly to do with the film application procedure, but I thought I would give a brief outline of what exactly. So we talk more about this investigational product. So we are, unlike the other myopia management spectacle solutions, which have the lens itself has the treatment option. So, but now with the Arrest film, so we are applying the treatment option on a single vision lens. So there is a bit of a different process on like how we are going to do this treatment. But I will give you a brief idea of how is it going to look like, but definitely we will have more training sessions, and then definitely we will have we will be coming there and then training you guys. So not to take too much of a tension. So this is the overview. So once we have the study product, maybe we will be shipping the lenses and the films to you. And then once you have the study product at your end, and then the person who is responsible for doing this product handling, whether it can be a spectacle lens or an optical film from the data which you acquire from the patient's refractive error, then you have to request. So there is a bit of a process involved. It's not like directly picking from the stock and then you're dispensing. So there's a bit of a process involved from the time when you get the lenses from Enthalmic, and then you store it in your store, and then you request from that stock, like, so that's the particular term which we use. And then there is a process of assembly. So you take the lens blank, and then the patient or the participant will select the frame. We have to fit the frame lenses in the frame, and then we have to do some quality check, and then we finally give it to the participant. So the idea is during this entire process, I think it's very important for us to keep the accountability of those products which we are using in terms of the number of films which we are using, whether are they, the number of lenses. It's not about, how many lenses or films we are using, but just having accountability to do that one. So whether is it because, in the process of edging or in the process of fitting, sometimes the lens may not fit well. So those documentation will help us to track, and then as a responsibility of the investigator and also the sponsor. So it's good to have a track of what we are doing. And then also the other important thing is to have some quality checks. We have to make sure that the lenses are fitted properly, the film is applied properly. So these are the things which are mostly kind of in administrative things, but it is very important to give an appropriate correction and the treatment to the participant. So there are three aspects. One is the lens aspect, frame, and the film. So the lenses, of course, when we ship the lenses, so it's always advisable to check the quantity against what we have ordered, and then randomly select 10% of the total stock, and then measure the powers to make sure that everything is in order. And frames, I'm assuming you will procure these from your local supplier. But films, we will be shipping again. Once we ship the films, we have to make sure that somebody is going to check the quantity of the films, and then check whether if it is damaged or any sort of other things which you notice, then immediately we can notify us, and then we will rectify that the issues, whatever it may be. So again, the other things which is very common in terms of how we track and then how we document is using the QR code. So each lens box or the film box would have a QR code, and also different details of the number of, whether it is quality checked, and the number of films in it, and then what batch it is, and then site details and these things. So you will have a form which, once you receive the films, the person who is responsible for taking the stock details need to fill this little one sheet where we just have to enter. It's a very simple form which you can easily fill, how many films were there, were there any damages to the box or the films. And then once you complete that, you just send that to Kathy, and then we will enter that details into the Sortly, which is another software which you are not using, but as the main data or the stock tracking that from our end we will be using. Again, so the same applies for the lenses and frames. So again, I'm not going to the details of this one at this stage, but in the upcoming training sessions, we will learn more about this one, and then when we will particularly train how to enter those details. So one of the other advantage of using Castor is you can actually extract some of the data, which is very useful in terms of fitting the frames, and when the details need to be sent to the dispensing lab. So these are the details which you can extract: the participant number, prescription, and monocular PD and monocular heights. I think these are the two measurements which are essential for it is also indicated in the caster. Once you do your baseline measurements, there will be specific columns where you have to enter the monocular PDs, the interpupillary distance, and also the fitting heights, the monocular fitting heights. So, and there will be specific columns where you need to enter the frame model and color. So, and also the randomization details. So the test or control. So based on that one, the test or control, the way how we dispense the dispensing process will also be slightly different. Again, we will go through that in greater details at later stage. So this is one of the sheet which will be used, which you will be using in terms of dispensing. Once the recruitment is over at the baseline visit, so we need to print out this form and then enter the details. So if you look at this form here, the green fill shaded areas in this particular form is the data will be auto popped up from the caster. So you don't need to enter these things. So once you enter the patient ID, you can all the data will be automatically generated here. So the frame code, refraction details, and PD and monocular fitting height. So everything will be auto generated. And also the design, it's based on whether once the randomization is complete, if it is a test lens or a control lens. A or B based on, you will get to know if it is a control lens. That means if it is single vision lens, there is no need to apply the film. If it is a test lens, then we need to apply the film and then send it to the dispensing lab. Okay, so again, as I said, if it is a control lens, we can you can actually take the frame from the stock and take the required lenses based on the refractive error from the stock, and then send those two to the dispensing lab. They will fit the lenses into the spectacles, and then you can receive as per the protocol. 14 days later, we can schedule a dispensing visit if the quality of the spectacles is good. If it is a randomization is set to a test lens, then you take the spectacles frame and the lenses. In addition, you have to take the spectacle film. So again, because this is a test lens, we need to apply the treatment effect onto it. So that's we need to apply the film. So the major part of this presentation is about the film application. So before doing the film application, I think maybe I'll just quickly show the film first. So I don't know how many of you have seen the film. So this is how the kangaroo or the arrest spectacle film would look like. It's kind of a thin polycarbonate material film. Something like, the best example is like how you put a screen protector on a mobile screen. So that's an idea. Okay, so if you want to imagine the film, so this is how it looks like. So before even taking out the film, I think we need to, it's very crucial to clean the lens properly. So before everything, you need to make sure that the power of the lens blank what you choose was correct. So you measure the power and then check the lens quality. There are no scratches. Make sure that the lens is not damaged, no dust on it, and make sure that you clean the lens. And then in order to apply the film, it's important to make sure that we need to mark the optical center of the lens. So easiest way to use the photometer or lensometer, whatever we have at your clinic, just mark the optical center on the back surface of the lens. Okay, so generally front surface is used, but in this case, because we need to apply the film on the front surface, we need to make sure that there are no marking left over. So you mark the optical center, and the other way to make it easy is you just use a cross or any horizontal line, which is to make sure that it is very obvious. If it is a very tiny marking ink, then it may be very difficult to see. So you can just using a marker pen, erasable marker pen, you can just make it like a cross or a horizontal line, whichever is convenient for you, just to making sure that the center is marked properly. So the film generally comes as a sheet which has two individual films. Okay, so it is protected with two layers. One is a back surface layer is adhesive layer because that's where the actual film is attached to the base of the sheet, and the front surface layer is kind of a protective layer which we need to remove it later on. So it's easily you can remove it just because it's already laser cut. So this part of the film is already laser cut. So once you peel it off, so it's easy to take the film out. And if you notice, the center of the film is also marked with a cross symbol here. So the idea is that will help us to exactly align the film on the lens blank. Okay, so this is your reference point on the film, and the previous marking on the lens are the reference points for the lens blank. So what we need to do is you take out the film off and then keep the adhesive side facing up on a clean flat surface like this, and then you place the lens onto the film directly. So making sure that both the crosses are aligning each other. So without having any parallax, just keep exactly on top of the film, and then just have a gentle touch so the film attaches to the lens surface, and then you can just rub the film onto the lens surface. So there is a specific method which we found which is very effective to make it attach to the lens. So just press in the center, like as you can see in this little diagram here, representation, the numbers indicate where you have to apply the pressure. So first attach it in the center and then slowly make a horizontal, lateral, attachment, the movement. So two horizontal and then vertical, then oblique direction. So if you apply the pressure in all these directions, the film actually nicely attaches to the lens. So this is how it looks like once the film is attached to the lens blank. Once you make sure that it's sitting nicely on the lens, and then we can use an adhesive, the sellotape to peel up the second protective layer so that the lens is actually having the final product in terms of the application. So again, that is not the end. We need to because it's kind of a procedure where we are applying with hand and then making sure that there is no quality is not compromised. Once the film is applied, we need to again check for the quality, check whether the film is actually centered on the lens. So the optical center of the lens with the geometric center or the central part of the film is actually aligned. And then because it is a film applying on the surface, there is a possibility that there may be little of these bubbles which may come in between the surfaces, but generally they will disappear with time. But it's always good based on how bad it is and where the bubbles are presented. And there is also possibility that sometimes the edge of the film is not attached properly. Again, so that those are the things which we need to observe. So what we found was we used this little instrument called bubble removing machine, which actually helps to take out all these bubbles. It makes the film attach to the lens more strongly so that we don't have any poor quality surface. So this is a small video. It's a very little instrument, easy to use. You just turn the power on, and we will again show you. And there is a specific document how to use this one. And there is a little socket where we can place the lens in it. At a time, we can use two lenses, and then just close the socket there. And then we need to set the temperature and just press it. So what it does is it's a compressor motor which actually builds some pressure inside. Within 2 minutes, the entire process will be over. So it's just like cleaning up the surface and making sure that there are no bubbles. So if you can see, this is before the image was taken before using the bubble removing machine, and this is after. So we can clearly see that all the bubbles have gone. So this makes sure that we are providing the good quality lens with the film attached. So there are no damages, scratches, or any sort of deformities on the lens. So, however, once we make sure that the film is attached properly to the lens, we still would like to wait 2 days before sending it to the edging, because within 2 days, it gives us the confidence that there are no new bubbles which may come, or the surface is not lifted off. So once you attach the film, once the bubble removing machine is done, then we will let it be there for 2 days minimum, and then we send that lens and the frame to the lab for edging. So that's the edging again. While there are many methods, but I think even in nowadays, most of the clinics or the dispensing parts are using the automatic edging machines. So that is preferable. And there are chances that sometimes when the lens is grinding in the edging machine, there may be a chance that the film may come off. So in that cases, we have to reapply the film and then do the steps which we just discussed before. So that's the overall idea of the film application. So there are a couple of steps, but it's pretty straightforward and easy method. And with the bubble removing machine, once we start doing maybe five or six lenses, it becomes pretty much easy. So again, as always, the quality checks. So once the frames are made, the spectacles are made, we have to make sure that the PDs are correct, and the monocular height, everything is correct, the model, those details we have to check. And in the dispensing, before that, once we have the spectacles ready, you got it from dispensing lab, we would like to have them, you take a photograph and then upload it in the SharePoint folder, which we will give the access, and then we will review it and then provide the approval. So this is a kind of a normal routine procedure which we do for all the clinical trials, especially for this dispensing films where the centration is very crucial. So that's another thing. Maybe these are the things which we will discuss in the later stage in upcoming training sessions. So job sheet, I think this is, again, I discussed, this is important. So once you complete this one, you can actually document whether if there are any extra films used because of the bubble or, edging time, there may be chances that you may have to use a couple of more lenses and films. So everything you can record in this sheet so that that we can have a track of how many we need to replenish the stock and that sort of a thing. Okay, so the disposal of products. So if any film which is damaged by due to the during the film application process, you just peel off from the lens and then shred it, cut it into small pieces, and then dispose it. If anything which is in good condition with the film on, then maybe you store it, and at the end of the study, we will have to hand it over. The same applies for the frame with the good, the film and the lens quality is good, then those needs to be stored. If anything, the damaged film, then you shred it or cut it into small pieces and then just dispose it. Yeah, so that's all. I think the key part is the film application. I think because with the time we may I might have rushed it, but there will be a couple of more sessions which we can discuss in detail if anything else. So with that, I will stop here. If there are any questions.
I do. I have a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
When you put the film, lens into the bubble machine, is it best because there might be two different powers for the right and the left, is it best to write R and L on the back surface of the lens so they know which one to put it on?
Yes, so that's a very good point. So it's always good to, when we're doing two lens blanks, it's always, good to have it documented. Maybe use a marker pen, right and left. So are the powers, whatever. If it is the same power, that's okay. But sometimes cylindrical axis and the axis might be different for astigmatic correction. So it's always good to keep a note of R and L. So that makes it easy.
And that they can rub it, and they can rub that off anyway. Yeah. And when you guys go over, there will be test ones that we'll send with them as well, so they can muck around with. So yeah. Test films.
Any other questions or any clarifications?
Very quick one. So I'm just a bit curious. So after we put the film on, do we need to make sure that they have the clear central zone?
You mean, yeah, so the film itself has a central zone marked with a cross symbol Hui. So that cross needs to be aligned with the optical center.
Yeah. Do we need to take it out right after that? Do we need to take it out the mark of the central zone?
Yes, so that you can wipe it off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just always use alcohol swabs. Don't use anything else. We've had an incident where someone used something and it just took the ink off or whatever it is. So make sure you always use alcohol swabs.
Simple alcohol swab, then that should clean.
Yeah, and that should clean it. Yeah.
Is there any other question from the team?
I'm sure there will be.
So just
make sure that we have enough time to absorb all things.
Yeah, I'd also point out that the process is going to be a lot easier. It's not much more complicated than just fitting a pair of spectacle lenses and fitting and marking up spectacles. But we will go through this in a hands-on mode when we actually come over and do the training before the study starts. So this is just basically an introduction, so that when you see it, it won't be it'll be a case of you've at least heard of it, and then you'll be able to understand it a little bit better. We certainly don't expect anyone to be able to understand how to do everything right now.
So I wonder, is it difficult to attach the film on the lens? About the technique.
It's a technique, right, Praveen?
Yeah.
It's a technique.
We Kathy actually used, she is the one who started, applying the films, and then she has developed a new technique. Like, it's kind of a skill, once you practice 5 to 6 lenses, then everybody gets a hands-on, and then it's easy. It's easy.
Yeah. It's easy. It's patience, and you can't rush it. You got to take your time and do it. Yeah.
So after attaching the films on the lens, is that how about the edging technique? Is that?
So once we attach the film, so we generally send it to the dispensing lab for edging. So once it is attached, most of the times it's like it's not there. So even after edging, it doesn't matter. So it sticks there. So once the lenses are actually fitted into the frame, we don't even see the edges. So as if it's not there. So it doesn't matter once the film is attached firmly to the lens, even after edging, it's not going to come off. But there is a chance, but it's very, very rare. So if that happens, then we may have to use another lens and film and then repeat the process.
Okay. So
Yeah.
do we need to note that the film is need to retouch? We need to note that on the form.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's correct.
I think for our team, they need some time to absorb the information, as Dr. Hui said. So if there's more question, I will ask later.
Sure. Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, not from my side.
Okay.
Sorry, we have no question.
Any other questions?
Yeah. I think somebody.
Did someone have a question?
I thought they said they have no questions.
Oh, I have no questions.
We have-
Okay.
After the study is over, the patient's lenses will have to be taken back, right? So will they be able to get new lenses afterwards?
Oh, you mean after the study done?
Yeah.
When we complete the
Yes.
study? Okay. So she's asking, so after finishing the study, do the kids having another pair of lenses? I think in our study, we after completing the study, we all agree that we have one pair of lens for the kids, but not with the film, just a pair.
Correct. Yeah, we can
Yeah,
do
One
that.
pair of lenses. Yeah. We give them one more pair with their prescription at that time,
Mm.
but with no film.
That's right. Yeah, we can't give the films out because they're not commercially available. This is a study to see whether they work or not, and then after that, yeah, but they won't be available until by the time this study's over.
I do have a question. Oh, sorry. Once the study is finished, do all the films come back to us, or can the site destroy them?
That is a good question.
Oh, yeah. I think that you can
Um,
confirm that via email, Danny.
Yeah, we haven't actually worked that one out, Kathy.
Okay.
It may
Yeah.
not be. There are reasons why we're doing that in other trials, but we may not need to do that in this trial.
Okay. All right.
Ravi was going to be on, otherwise I would have asked him directly.
Okay.
But he's not on, so that's a question we should ask. And then we'll inform the sites once we know the answer.
Okay.
Because that is, yeah, good point. We need to actually know about that before we actually, sooner rather than later.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Is that no more question from our side
Okay.
for now?
For now.
Well, I'm
But
sure there'll be more.
there'll be more, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
When we watch the recording, okay, we may
Yeah.
ask further question.
Mm.
Don't hesitate. We're always here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, if that's the
Okay.
case, I think it's time for me to go to bed. And I think it's time for everyone else to go home.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks for your time,
Yeah,
guys.
thanks
Nice to
everyone.
meet.
Thanks.
Nice to
Yeah.
meet you all.
And
Talk to you
I'll
soon.
send
thank
I'll
you,
send you
thank you.
the a link for the recording. Wee.
Yeah.
Recording. Okay.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
See
Okay,
you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye.
See you.
See you
See you.
later. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot. Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Daniel.